To the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a guest in today that I've actually watched in my upbringing in the footy world. So I'm a Cowboys fan, so you were there for a little bit. But I've got Jordan Kahu joining me today. 116 NRL games, 10 NRL finals, New Zealand international test player, proud father of three, and a full-time videographer as well. So we can touch on your filming today as well, brother. But brother, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Man, let's I normally start with my podcast, Your Journey, and you've had a highlight of journeys through your sporting career. I know there's stuff outside that which we'll dig into. I'd like to know, man, I guess your journey from start to finish, and you can go as long as you want. You can go 5 minutes, you can go 20 minutes. What's your story, brother? How'd you make it?
So I was born and raised in Wellington, New Zealand.
Cool.
Little place called. I was born in Lower Hutt. But I quite proudly represent Petone. That was just basically because I played there as a kid growing up.
Good for
Parents were just hard workers. You know, mum had, I think, 3 jobs. Dad had 2. They both switched in and out. Mum worked overnight. Dad was a courier throughout the day, so he was gone pretty early. I had an older brother that I just idolized from get-go. He was just, you know, a person I wanted to be my whole childhood. I just looked up to him so much.
What'd you look up to him about?
I think at that time it was just sport. He was so good, and he's just my older brother. I think just like a little brother always is just nagging their older brother and just following them around, wanting to go everywhere with them. And then throughout school, I was pretty blessed with a good circle of family and friends. It wasn't, you know, so many, but I did have a good core group of family and friends, especially friends that, you know, I spent most of my childhood with.
Cool.
One of my best mates lived on the same street as me. We both had similar dreams, the same dream of becoming All Blacks.
Cool. So you wanted to be All Black first before?
Yeah, wanted to be an All Black. And it was good because I always had someone that was chasing the same dream as me throughout our whole childhood.
Yep.
We both had similar morals. You know, we both had parents that were quite strict on us.
Yep.
And that was kind of easy because I had someone else doing that alongside me.
Yep.
Went through childhood. Just all I wanted to do was play for the All Blacks. Spent most of my childhood playing rugby union. Went to high school, and the high school was pretty average at union. So I transitioned into another school, which was an all-boys school, Wellington College, and they were really good rugby school. Went there, played under 15s, won the national junior comp our first year there.
What position were you in union?
I was fullback.
Cool.
Yeah. And then, so my best mate was in that team as well. And then the second year at that school, I was young. I was in the school first 15, in and out. So I was playing there and back at the second 15. And we had a quadrangular tournament, and obviously I was young and I just wanted to play. And when you're playing rugby union at school over there, there's no club footy that goes, you know, happens on the weekends as well. It's just school footy. So there's no chance to play unless you're playing for your school. And there was the tournament, and I think I got, you know, 2 or 3 minutes out of the whole tournament, and I'd had enough. I think I didn't get on in the final at all, and I just remember the boys running on celebrating, and I was just so upset.
How old are you when this was happening?
I would have been 15.
15. We'll circle back to it. I want to hear how you overcome failure as a whole, but we'll circle back to that.
And then I remember jumping in the car with my dad and him just not saying anything to me. I think he could tell how upset I was that I didn't play at all. And then I don't know when it happened, but he came to me maybe the week after, 2 weeks after, and said there was a rugby league opportunity. And I went and played in that and just loved it. It's kind of a rebellious decision because you're not allowed to play rugby league when you're at the Wellington College.
They don't let you play league at all?
Nah, especially if you're in the first 15 or thereabouts. So it was a bit of a rebellious thing that I just went and played. We went into a school tournament, a league tournament, and we were made up of a bunch of different boys' schools that didn't have a league team.
Yep.
And we ended up winning the whole thing,
Cool.
which
Epic, man.
was pretty crazy.
Yep.
And then I was just happy to be playing again. Still didn't know the rules or anything. I kept stuffing up.
Yep.
And then there was a managing. So there was a scout at that schoolboys tournament, and I signed my first agent after that tournament. And
For any club at that time?
no club. Just got an agent, and then I ended up playing in the under 16s rep side for rugby league, and the coach of that team was Johnny Lomax, an ex NRL player, and he had obviously a few connections over here, and that he got in touch with the West Tigers, and then the West Tigers got in touch with me, and next thing you knew, I was on a plane to Australia.
Cool.
And that's kind of how the whole rugby league journey happened.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you debuted for Brisbane?
Yep.
And how did the transition from Tigers to Brisbane, how'd that happen?
So I started school over here at Kahu Park.
Oh, you went to Keebra?
Yeah.
I was a PBC boy.
Oh, no way. The rivals.
Probably don't like me. No, that's all good.
I'll just pack up and leave.
Yeah.
No. So I went to Keebra 08, 09. 08, we probably had the best schoolboy team, but we just didn't beat Palm Beach. We lost in the Southeast Queensland final.
Was that with Jerome Hughes? Was he in that team?
No, it was like Jordan Rankin, Ryan James that year.
Yeah.
I think they ended up winning it that year.
I think they did,
yeah. And then the next year I was captain of the schoolboys of our team, and we ended up winning the whole thing in 09.
How was that?
It's pretty cool. It was the last time I remember playing footy for being footy.
Yeah.
And
what do you mean by that?
Not getting paid.
Yeah.
It wasn't my job.
Yeah.
It was kind of the last year that I played just based off passion.
Yeah.
A lot of professional sportsmen can say that they do play it now for passion, but they're still getting paid. It's a job, whether they like it or not. And that was probably my last year where it was kind of, just solely just passion.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that year, we won it. I didn't want to move to Sydney at all. I just wasn't ready. Me and my fiance now, we were both 18. We didn't want to move away from my dad, who was on the Gold Coast. We didn't want to move to Sydney and just, kind of fall into a rut down there and just get complacent. And so we stayed on the Gold Coast. The Broncos were interested, and my brother had played for them in 2008 in the inaugural under-20s year. So when they found out he had a younger brother, they were interested.
Yeah.
And then it was a tough conversation with the West Tigers, because obviously
were you contracted with them at the time?
Yeah, I was based on a scholarship at Keebra Park.
Yep.
With the intentions of moving to Sydney, but I just I wasn't.
What's that? Just wasn't drawn to it. Didn't like the city.
Didn't like Sydney. Loved the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
My dad was here.
Yep.
It would have been just my partner and I that moved down there. So that was kind of the reasons we stayed. And started at the Bronx at the end of 09.
Cool, man. Man, take me through your debut. What was your debut like? Like even the process of when you found out you're going to make your debut, the process leading into it. I'd love to know, for obviously my audience, we're big into mindset and how to just look after your inner game. And I know athletes in particular, they have a knack for getting into those states of flow or those states of performance or just those states that serve you. Like I've had a background of sport, and I remember I was fullback, dropped a couple balls, and then you're in your own head and just you're off for the entire game. Yeah. So what was it like for you, man? Like how old are you when you debuted, and what was that journey like? Yeah,
so getting to that part was probably the hardest. I had 2 knee reconstructions, so 2011, 2012. I had back-to-back knee recons. So
same knee or different knees?
Same knee. Yep. Yeah. So I had one year in under 20s in 2010, and at the end of that year, I had a meeting with Ivan Henjak, who was the coach at the time, and he said that I'll be training in the full-time squad. Mm-hmm. So I was still only 19? Yeah, I would have been 19 at the time. And then. Yeah, so that was obviously like huge. And then I did the whole preseason with the first grade, and then played a few trials, and then the first or second round of the 20s in 2011, I done my knee.
Yep.
So that was a huge setback. Got through that year. Obviously, it was a tough year. And then came back.
What was it like, man? So sorry to pause you there. Like, I'm trying to remember names. In my year 12 year, I was with Keegan Hicgrave. That was the grade I was with. So Keenan Palacia, who's playing Britton Nakora. I played with him in Clubland.
Yep.
It was in year 12 for me, and one of the Australian schoolboys, I think Regan Graves was his name, committed to his own life, and obviously mental health, mindset, and all that stuff. What's it like for an athlete, man? Because I think it's starting to get better now. But like, because you guys are very much like, you're paid to perform, and it's pretty much it's a results-driven business, right? If you play like shit, if you're off, if you're injured, like, I know it can get quite dark and quite challenging. I remember I broke my collarbone when I was 12, and I made my first rep team, and I couldn't play for South Coast, if you understand the South Coast system. And like, I cried my eyes out. It was like the hardest thing for me at that time in my life. Anyways, what was it like for you going through a couple big injuries as an athlete?
Those two were obviously hard because the first one, I didn't deal with it so well because I knew I'd get through it. I was like, okay, what's a year off? So I probably didn't deal with it the best. I was still going out partying, drinking, and just, nothing kind of fazed me. It wasn't until I did the second time around, I was like, shit, like my dream of being a professional athlete could be done after this. So that was pretty hard to take initially. So the first, month I was, second guessing myself a little bit, but still in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm not stopping until I get there.
Great.
There was obviously some dark times and dark periods throughout, being injured for 2 years straight and watching games and watching people that I knew I was better than debut ahead of me. Those were like quite selfish moments because obviously I was happy for them because I'd spent pretty much 2-3 years with those boys and they were playing, and I was quite jealous and just thinking that could be me.
Did you do anything internally or practically to help you through that? Did you have a good support system around you? Like, how were you able to, I guess, get through those challenging times?
I was pretty lucky. Like Jess, my fiance, and I now, we've kind of only ever had each other for when we were 17. So I was lucky I had that stability in my life of her always being there.
Awesome.
And she's just been my number one fan, so whenever anything went wrong, she was always super positive and always kind of helped me understand that I would be back no matter what.
Awesome.
So having her there obviously helped a lot. And I think just my mentality around training, professionalism, and attitude kind of got me out of all of those ruts. Whenever I was feeling down and out, I knew what I needed to do, and to make me feel better was to go and train my best, train my hardest, and do what the coaches and everyone else had asked of me.
Beautiful, man.
And I just made sure I stayed in that routine of working hard, and that kind of helped me through some dark times.
Epic, man. And so the debut itself, so you've gone through 2 injuries, you've come back. What was you'd found out about your debut and then leading up to it, what was that like?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. I think the hardest thing was I was told I wasn't allowed to tell anyone because it was hard. Looking back, they were trying to protect me because we were playing the Melbourne Storm, so they were kind of...
What a fucking debut.
Yeah, they wanted to protect me. They didn't obviously want me to be targeted or anything like that now, but looking back, I wish we would just put it out there because it looked like they were trying to hide me and like looked like I wasn't ready. But that week was pretty surreal. I think there was a lot of reflection in that week of the last couple of years of what I've been through. And I think I just remember thinking I can finally pay all the people back that had believed in me for so long.
Beautiful, man.
My parents, my aunties and uncles, friends' parents, all those people that had picked me up, dropped me off the trainings, just all the little things. That's something that I thought about throughout that week. When I just remember game time, I was still in kind of a haze, and I was I always tell the story, it didn't take me until I missed this first tackle and they scored a try to realize, like, shit, I'm here. Real, like, this is not a dream. Like, you got to snap into action and fucking be on, because this is the arena and you got to turn up.
How was the debut itself? How was the game?
Yeah, it was. I think we lost by about 20, maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, it was such a cool experience. You know, like looking across the field and seeing Kronk, seeing Billy Slater, and like
cool, huh?
you know all of these big name players, and to be on the same paddock with them was pretty crazy. And then to look beside me and see, Justin Hodges wasn't playing, but like see Corey Parker, Sammy Thaiday, like a lot of those boys, Scotty Prince. That was, like just crazy. That was, up until that first tackle, I kept, I was looking around, as you do when you dream, you're kind of like, what the hell is this? Like what's going on? And then that first try happened, and I was like, shit, now I need to do my job. Yeah.
Epic, man. Man, there's so many things I want to ask, man. What was some of the highlights for you personally? Like, I know there's some people, it is the wins, the big games, the test matches and stuff like that. What were some of your personal highlights for your career? Whether it's just playing a good game here or there, or just playing against certain people, playing with certain people, whether it is your debut. What were some of the highlights for your career?
Definitely making the Kiwis. That was real special. Yeah. Obviously, like I said earlier, my whole life, all I dreamed about was being an All Black. And obviously, swapping to league, I couldn't do that. So becoming a Kiwi was the closest thing to that. And that was pretty special. Like I said, all those people that had helped me get to where I was. Again, throughout the anthem, that's what I thought of. Just all of those people, I thought about the 2 hard years and the injuries I had to go through to get to that point. I thought of a ex-coach who said, didn't believe in me that I'd make the Kiwis. I thought of him, and I think it's just I thought of all the things that motivated me to get me to that point. And that was just kind of a number of things that was going through my head, and definitely one of my highlights. But another highlight would probably, I think, when my daughter came to my first game and having, like your child in the crowd, that was pretty cool. It was, I remember, I can't remember if we won or lost, but I don't think it mattered too much anymore when I had kids. And just going into the crowd after the game and grabbing her was pretty cool thing.
Magical, man. We'll jump between. We'll come back to footy. There'll be definitely some more footy questions for you. Let's go into being a father, man. Like I notice with the work that I do, things that you talk about, things that you see yourself as, are things that are obviously very important to you. And when I was doing my research for you yesterday, the first thing on your YouTube bio was proud father of 3. So, what does being a father mean to you? What has it taught you? And why is it the first thing you have on your bio?
I think my whole career, I was always trying to figure out why I was so motivated to become who I was. And then when I had injuries, I was always wondering, like, what's the, when I was going through it, I was like, what's the point of like pushing through these? Just give up. And then it wasn't until I had kids when I fully looked at it from a different angle, and I was like, oh shit, like this is why I did, this is why I chased my dreams. This is why I pushed through, numerous setbacks. And it was kind of just a wake up call to me when I had my first child of, like this is why I kind of do everything. And to this day, this is the reason why I do everything. And I know it sounds a bit cliche sometimes, but they're definitely my why. And the reason I get up in the morning, the reason I get up 3:30 every morning, they're the first thing on my minds. And it's just a crazy, I've only been a dad 7 years, and it's a crazy difference to how I look at the world now to where I was, 7 years ago.
That's awesome, man. What has being a father taught you?
It's taught me real pressure, obviously.
How do you compare? I was going to couple that question with like the different lessons compared to sport, but also the things that double up with sport. So, continue with your question, but I'll probably give you a version of it as well.
Yeah, it's taught me, the real what real pressure is.
Yeah.
You know, I used to think kicking a goal when the game was on the line was pressure.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until becoming a dad I understood what real pressure is, and that's, you know.
Why is that, man? I absolutely love it, and I agree with it. But why do you say that? Because some people probably hear that and be like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about?"
I think it's just because, you know, I've got little humans that rely on me for food, for shelter, for love, for growth. You know, all of those things. And that's, you know, that's real pressure. Obviously, every parent kind of feels that. You know, I know a lot of single parents obviously feel that because they're the only kind of, you know, source for their kids, for everything. And that's probably one thing it's taught me, but it's probably taught me to look at the world, you know, a lot, you know, look at the world at how it is and how beautiful it is. I think seeing the world for the first time for kids, seeing things for the first time, everything's so amazing. And I feel like as adults, we kind of take the world for granted because we've been around longer. We see things, we see trees, we see flowers, and, you know, we just walk straight past them. Whereas, you know, kids, they'll walk past a, you know, pretty flower and they'll just like think how amazing and beautiful it is. So they've definitely taught me that, and it's probably helped me a lot on my, you know, my content, videography, photography side, because, you know, I've always tried to look through the lens, like, you know, I'm looking through the eyes of my kids and just, you know, taking in the beauty of the world.
Man, one more question, then we'll get into filming because you just mentioned it. What, who are you becoming, or who do you want to become for your kids?
I think I posted a story last night, and I want to become.
I think was that the writing one?
Yeah. I want to become a dad who has more time. I think that's just solely the reason I work so hard now, and I just, you know, I want to become a dad that has time to, you know, do everything with my kids. You know, right now I'm missing out on some sports, missing out on dropping them off at school, missing out on picking them up, and I just want to, you know, I want to work my ass off so I can get to a point where I have more time for them.
Yeah, beautiful, man. I want to get into your spiritual beliefs later, but we'll come back to that as well. Let's go on to the filming. So you're filming now. What are you doing now? Like, tell us, paint the picture. I know videography, film, a gamer as well. I'm a gamer. I love games. So, what is it that you do? So what do you do at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm a photographer, videographer. Basically, I don't really have any sort of niche. I love probably more so shooting content with people in it, more so than, you know, real estate and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't have a niche. I shoot weddings, I shoot brands, I shoot lots of, you know, social media marketing stuff for brands. But it keeps it interesting. That's what I've always, you know, I loved shooting different things. I don't want to get to a point where I'm shooting one thing and only that one thing, because I just feel like I'd lose the passion for it. Whereas now it's so interesting because I'm doing so many different things. And it's opened some crazy doors. I think when people find out that I'm a ex-footy player, but I'm also a creative as well, people are kind of confused a little bit because that just doesn't mix usually. Have
you always been creative? Always been into like music or arts or design or, I don't know, image editing stuff? Were you always a creative dude?
Yeah, I've always, and my content, photography, videography has always come from just having, you know, a wild imagination. I was never, I wasn't into music or anything like that, but I just, you know, I love telling stories, and I remember in high school I really struggled with reading books and writing about them. But if you gave me a pen and paper and just told me to make my own story, I'd be really good at that. But yeah, I think that's just come from just having a wild imagination and just my willingness to tell stories.
What makes a good story?
A mixture of emotion and probably an emotional roller coaster would be the best way. Is a good story. You know, you're going up, all your ups and all your downs. I feel like you just can't be too happy all the time for a good story, and you can't be too sad all the time. People like to see, you know, the roller coaster of emotions, and I feel like that's what makes a good story.
What are you working on at the moment with this? Where are you working on now with the film, the photography, the business, or the commercial aspect of it? And where do you want to take it? What's the vision for where you want to take it?
Yeah, so right now it's just kind of jobs as they come, and that's been pretty good. Keeps it interesting, like I said. But yeah, I really like to get into, you know, movies and short film. I'll probably have to start in short films to get to movies, but that's probably the direction I want to go to.
What type of movies? Like what's your genre? If you had to pick, if you had to, obviously you probably take an opportunity when it pops up, but if you had to sort of shoot for the goal, what would it be? Picture like Marvel.
I don't know. Yeah, depends what kind of budget I have, I guess. But I love for now. I'd love to start doing more documentaries, style stuff.
If you had to make your own documentary, what would it be on?
I'd probably start in sport somewhere. I'd love to show, you know, the struggles of sportsmen and what we go through. I feel like, you know, it's because they get paid so much, because they're idolized by so many, they shouldn't have too many problems. So I'd love to, you know, maybe share a documentary, you know, documenting, you know, professional athletes, you know, problems and their struggles that they go through. Which I think that would be pretty cool.
What are some of the ones you went through? Obviously the injuries and stuff like that, but any ones that you didn't mention?
Sometimes when you don't feel wanted, that was a pretty tough thing to go through when clubs, you know, kind of shop you around or you're not playing, and those were pretty tough. Those are things that we had to go through, especially when you're coming through as, you know, one of the hottest, you know, kind of young players, and then to get to a point where, you know, no one wants you. That was pretty rough. All the social media kind of stuff. Obviously, if you're present on social media, it's gonna come your way. And like, you know, as much as you say it doesn't affect you, like some of it does.
It can be fucking brutal, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't follow it as closely as I used to, but man, like, who was it? Like, I remember like Mitch Pearce was like in the New South Wales era when Queensland was dominating. Like, everyone hated him.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, man, he's doing the best he fucking can.
Yeah.
Like, and they just like, even those Whiten signed a contract with the Rabbits recently, and like he was getting like fucking death threats on it, man. It can be fucking brutal. Was social media that big when you were going through your career?
I got a little bit. I was quite okay with dealing with it. I think I'd block it out. Some messages that come through get me sparked up a little bit. But yeah, there was a few times, especially after, you know, incidents in games or stuff like that that happened. Obviously, it was heightened a little bit. But the amount of love kind of outweighs all those, you know, negative things. But like I said, I'm a lot different to a lot of the other boys, and I know, you know, some of the boys could be quite affected with you know, some of the things that are said.
Yeah, beautiful, man. It's kind of, they fall into the same question. Does gratitude play a part in what you do? Like, you seem like a very grateful dude. The way you answer your questions, it's kind of hinted to me that you are. Like, even that one of your highlights was seeing your daughter there. I'm sure there would have been a lot of love and gratitude in that moment. Yeah. Is that something that plays a role in your life and what you do, from a career to a sporting to a father aspect?
Definitely. I think when I was playing, you know, losing the ability to play, and then coming back to playing, you know, makes you extremely grateful. Yeah. And then, you know, post footy, you know, I always say that in 2021, I was trying to grow my photography, videography business. Yeah. And I just, you know, it was such a hard kind of time to build anything. Yeah. And I wasn't considered essential, obviously. Yeah. So, you know, there was some really dark times, and now that work's coming my way, you know, I'm extremely grateful because I know what it's like to have nothing. Yeah. So I think, like, you know, being at your lowest, when you make it out of that, it really teaches you a lot about being grateful, because you know, when you're at your lowest, you feel like you've got nothing's happening, and then, you know, when things start getting better, and you make it through those tough times, I've always said, you know, the amount of work that gets thrown my way, I'm never gonna complain now, because I'm just extremely grateful, because I know what it's like to have no work at all, and that was like bloody tough. But yeah, that's probably something. Probably the reason that I'm so grateful for everything I have today. It's hard to kind of always remind yourself of that, but it's a good reflection of where you've been.
Love it, man. This ties into that question. Is there any, I guess, other mindset, you can call it tips or tricks or strategies, or just things that you kind of defaulted to through your parenting career, your football career, your videography career? Is there anything mindset related that's really helped you be successful, overcome problems, whether it's seeing failure as an opportunity or reaching out for help? Or I'm just curious what's gone on in between your ears to allow you to be quite successful in multiple different areas.
When I was playing footy, I think I always thought about me as a kid, remembering why, you know, like if I look back to when I was a kid to where I was then, that kind of reminded me, you know, why I was doing what I was doing, and all of those, you know, tough periods. I think self-reflection for me when I was playing footy was huge. After I played a really bad game, I always used to just go home and sit and just like really sit in it, think about it. And it would motivate me a lot to, you know, work on the things that maybe I dropped a few balls, so the next week I would, you know, do 100 passes and catches. And I think just self-reflection when I was playing footy, I was always my harshest critic when I was playing. No matter, you know, what the coaches, players, or anyone said, I obviously listened to it and believed, you know, it was true, but I was always so much harder on myself than they were. And then when I finished, I think, and building my own business is a whole different kind of struggle. I think I've always, not always, but there was a point in the first year of business where I was really, really struggling. And I remember talking to my partner at the time, and I don't think she understood how much I was struggling. And just the weight off my shoulders from talking to her about those problems at that time and what was going through my head really helped a lot.
Can you lean into that a little bit more? Mainly, and I know men and women happens to both, but I know in the men's culture, it's hard to open up. It's like men don't cry. I'm half a Kiwi. I don't sound like it or look like it, but in the Polynesian community, it's really big around just being vulnerable, sharing your emotions, opening up, that you are struggling and you need a little bit of help. Do you have any advice to anyone listening that's struggling with that could help them do what you just did?
I think for men, it's extremely hard because we don't want to put our problems on other people because we feel like it's going to weigh them down and drag them down like it's dragging us down. But I think we just need to be, you know, and not, we don't want to sound like we're complaining. So that's another reason why we don't do it. So I feel like we need to just open up a bit more. I share lots on social media, so I have lots of conversations with people. But I like opening up because I want others to feel like they're not alone. And it can be a super lonely road when you feel, you know, when you're feeling really super stressed out. But just opening up, I think we all know what's needed but a lot of us just don't do it because we're worried about thinking that we're looking like we're complaining, or two, we feel like we're going to weigh other people down. But I think, you know, the more we share, it's going to help spread the load, and the more people carrying that load, it's going to make it better.
Man, I love it. I'm not sure if you know men's medicine or you've heard of that crew. Like I'm very passionate about that, and just men's mental health specifically. I know I've had suicide in my family. I've had depression. I've had just people struggling with just asking for help. And just being able to be strong enough to be vulnerable is just I think it will just make such huge impact around the world.
Yeah, to like, add a little humor to it. It's like when you go and get, when you've got, like a favorite restaurant and you don't want to tell anyone about it, but you take them to that restaurant and you're enjoying it, sitting down with other people, and it just feels so much better.
Yeah.
That's kind of, the same with, sharing what you're struggling with.
Yeah.
It's just so much better when there's more people involved helping each other.
Beautiful, man. I got a little off question. Won't be a huge topic. I was actually born on Norfolk Island. And you went there recently. I had a look. My brother, he's a footy fan too. And I said, I've got Jordan Kahu coming over. He went back to Norfolk. He wasn't born. My brother grew up there with me, but he wasn't born there. He was born in New Zealand. But yeah, I was born there. I haven't been back in a while. But it's a beautiful place. So what was it like for you for a visitor? Have you been there before? Was that the first time?
That was the first time, yeah.
What was it like, man? This is a very selfish question.
Yeah, it was, bro. It was amazing. For one, I didn't even know it existed. Yeah. And then on our way there, I was like, why are we going to the international airport, but we only need our license?
Yeah.
Like, I was so confused.
Yeah.
And then got there, bro. It was just like, it was so beautiful. Yeah. I remember I went for a drive around. I borrowed one of the hire cars and I just went for a drive by myself, just roaming around the island. I just couldn't believe how beautiful it was. And there's so much history there too. Obviously some dark history, but it's
there's a jail.
yeah,
some the most messed up convicts.
Yeah, some pretty dark history, but it was there's some pretty crazy stories there, and the way that they've changed their kind of living over there, even like recently, just stuff that they were doing there that's only changed recently. You just I found it really hard to believe that was happening a year ago, 5 years ago. But yeah, such a beautiful place.
So beautiful, man. I've got like cool memories. Like, you don't wear seatbelts and shit over there.
No.
I think you do have to now. But my dad would drop me to school in the back of the truck, and it was just just fun.
And then the wave at everyone, every car,
little wave. And if you don't, you get like a side eye. Cows on the roads, they gotta fucking move around the cows. No, it's such a beautiful place, man. Obviously they love rugby league over there as well. So they're what were you there for actually?
Yeah, so we were there for like a Legends of the League game. So it was just all a bunch of washed up old fellas. The craziest thing was we played the game. And I was easily the youngest, and I had to come off because I knew I hurt my calf. So I was like, I'm the youngest on the field, and I'm the only one going off injured. How does that work?
Good shit, man. Just a selfish topic I want to talk about. Man, I just watched one of your recent videos on Instagram, just around chasing your dreams, chasing your passion. Seems like something you're quite passionate about, helping people, encouraging people to do so. Why are you passionate about that? And then what would you say to someone who's listening to this who wants to either start their business, they want to really commit to sport, they want to commit to a relationship, they just want to follow their dreams more? What would you say to them? So why do you love it? What are you passionate about that? And what would you say to someone?
I think I'm passionate about it because I've been really lucky in my life to have, I'm chasing one passion now, and I, chased another passion in my footy career. And they both, seem to pan out all right. So I think that's where the passion comes from.
Cool.
And I think I just love sharing my story and sharing what's helped me get to where I was to help others. And I just feel like there's so much untapped talent and potential in the world, but people aren't just willing to give things a crack. And
why do you think that is?
Probably embarrassment of failure is probably the biggest limiting thing of why people hold themselves back.
Have you been through that yourself?
Not so much. Like I feel like I've been quite lucky. I think my drive to get me to professional footy was something that no one was going to stop me. I don't think no injury was going to stop me. I was even if I played one game, I was getting there. But I think that's probably what drives me is embarrassment of failure. But I'm not willing to not give things a go because of that. I'll just give it a go, and I'll go all in. And I think people they hold themselves back too much, and they're ashamed of if they do fail. There's that Michael Jordan quote, and he's like, I miss 100% of the shots I don't take.
Yeah.
Um,
Love it.
and I'm a big MJ fan.
Yeah. MJ or LeBron?
Oh,
I'm not a huge b-ball fan, so I don't really care.
I don't know. Well, I'm named Jordan because of Michael Jordan, so
Really?
I'd have to say Michael Jordan.
Epic. Cool,
Yeah,
man.
and I love Space Jam.
Yeah.
1.
Oh, great.
Not the
I haven't
second
watched
one.
the new one. Who watched the new one?
Yeah, it's alright. It's real tech, future related. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like it'd be good for the kids. Like the kids now
Yeah.
would think that's the only Space Jam that exists. You know?
OG, baby.
Yeah, OG for sure.
What would you say to someone who's wanting to chase their dream? So maybe a bit of fear of failure, care about people's opinions, they're just scared, self-sabotage. I don't know, just they're not getting it done. Or maybe they're chasing it and they're maybe failing, they're thinking of quitting. Like, just what would you say to someone who's chasing dreams?
I think for someone that's afraid to start, maybe, you know, they've probably got a good job that's offers security, and that's probably the reason they're scared to jump out of that.
Yeah.
But the thing I would say is to, you know, find 2 hours a week to start whatever you're dreaming of. I know plenty of creators, photographers, videographers that have got really good jobs and they slowly move into freelancing and entrepreneurship.
Yep.
And that's probably the best way to do it rather than jumping straight away. Just, you know, slowly moving across to that.
Yep.
So for someone that's starting that, that's what I'd, you know, tell them to do. And for someone that's already in something, chasing their dreams, and, you know, it's just, it seems so tough. It's like I go through these patches all the time where I'm like, frick, this is not for me. I'd rather go to a job that's way more secure than, you know, this up and down roller coaster of, you know, 3 jobs a week to no jobs a week, or 6 jobs a week to no jobs a week. It's just a crazy roller coaster.
Yeah.
But I just know things are gonna get better, and I always, you know, always kind of like I'll dive if I've got more time where I'm not doing my work stuff. I'll dive into social media and I'll start posting stuff regularly on there, and I feel like that kind of helps me get work. Just another avenue to kind of get me more work. But I've always just had the mindset of, you know, it'll come off, and I've always had that mindset, and I know, you know, long term it's so much better and more beneficial to just keep chipping away, and even though it is tough, but just to stay in it and keep chipping away.
Love it, man. I mentioned it as we were talking. We'll finish with this question. What are your spiritual beliefs, or do you believe in faith, or like you just mentioned, kind of just saying, I just believe it's going to happen. Obviously, having faith that it's going to happen. You used the words like gratitude earlier. What's your spiritual beliefs or your beliefs in faith that have served you?
I think the belief I have in myself is kind of what drives me a lot, and my belief in just being a good person like has always brought me so much more opportunities, and being kind. Those are a few things that I've always believed in. Is not changing who I am, no matter what the environment is. I just feel like, you know, stuff just kind of happens sometimes, and you kind of just like, you know, how did this happen? But I always say to my partner, you know, I'll never, you know, we're both like this. We never will change who we are. We're always kind, and there's always opportunities that get thrown our way, and we're kind of like, shit, like this is why we do what we do, you know, like this is why we're kind every day, you know, this is the reason, you know, like we're not the most spiritual people, but when stuff gets thrown our way, we're kind of like, we know that everything we've done kind of has led to that. And it's pretty crazy how things kind of work out like that.
Epic, man. If people want to connect with you, if people want to, for services, just connect with you as a human being, say thank you for the wisdom or the value you've added today, where can they find you?
Just on my Instagram, I reply to everyone on Instagram at jordan.kahu.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off, but I was just saying you got back to me like within a day. So
Yeah,
I reached out for this podcast, and like within a day you got back to me. So say that again because I did cut you off.
So at Instagram, just on Instagram at jordan.kahu. Yeah, I've always been quite proud of myself that I've literally replied to everyone, even throughout my whole footy career.
Yeah.
Even good or bad, messages.
Hate,
yeah.
Beautiful, man. Like literally for the viewers, I messaged Jordan like 2 days ago, and we're here. I messaged you the other day, say, hey, look, I love your story. I'd love to have you on my podcast. Yeah, man, let's do it. And you're here 2 days later. So
that's crazy.
That was really cool. My last question, I always finish my podcast on this, just for vulnerability and being open with people. What's something that you're working on, either personally, professionally, spiritually, that no one else gets to see?
Probably teaching my kids good values.
How's that
at home?
We could have spoken about parenting for ages, but how's that going?
It's good. It's a tough battle because obviously having 3 humans with different brains and how they work is tough, and teaching them the same values as me, but without trying to manipulate their thoughts is probably what Jess and I as parents have always said. We've always said that we want to water them like flowers instead of plucking them and letting them grow their own unique way.
I love that. I've had this conversation with a fair few friends lately. It's like, how do you inspire good values, good beliefs, good habits without forcing it upon them? So I'm not a parent just yet, but I look forward to that lesson, which I think you're learning right now, man. Thank you for your time, brother. It's been amazing, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, bro.